Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. Today we will be looking at premium forwards. Lots of options up front this season, lots of potential value as well, but not everyone may agree. Joining me to consider the premium forward candidates is Az. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good.
Good.
It's exciting that the season's about to start, but it feels like it's only just finished. But yeah, we'll get stuck in, and we'll get stuck into some premium forward options and those top strikers to help. Now, I have put a handy table if I can find it. Here we go. This is some stats for some of these premium forward options, and it just shows the amount of choice that we've got. You've got Jesus, you've got Aguero, Firmino, I'm going to say, is, there. Vardy, Martial, Harry Kane. And then we could also say for 8.5, you can get the likes of Ings or Jimenez. I think both of them are quite well priced. Jimenez in particular is very well priced. Lots of choice as well. Meanwhile, in midfield, we've got to get the likes of Salah, Aubameyang, those types of players in. Plus, if you look at defence, we probably want a bit of Trent Alexander-Arnold in as well. So we haven't got a huge amount to spend, but there's a lot of people to spend on. And there's another player we haven't mentioned, there is Werner for Chelsea. I haven't got those stats there because obviously he's come straight into the Premier League. But his stats are really good. So I was just looking, 28 goals and 8 assists in 34 matches for Red Bull Leipzig last season. Just 4 yellow cards, no reds. That's my kind of striker. He's looking good. I like his stats across lots of seasons for the young man, and I'm quite excited about him. What do you reckon? Premium forwards. Do you have? How many are you going for, and who currently who are you thinking of getting?
Yeah, so there's 3 players who haven't left my team since my kind of first draft. One of them is Trent, obviously. One of them is Aubameyang because I just thought reclassified. Why would I get rid of him? And the other one is Werner. And it's always tricky with a kind of a new player to the league, how they're going to get on. I mean, you had someone like Soldado who signed for Spurs a few years ago. I think he started off okay, got a couple of penalties or something, and then just completely tailed off. But then you've got someone like Aguero who came on for about 20 minutes and scored 2 goals and got an assist, I think. So obviously you're hoping that Werner hits the ground running like he did. I just think with the fact that Chelsea were such an attacking team last year, and the fact that their defence is still pretty rubbish and they haven't really strengthened that at all, and all they've done is basically strengthen their attack even more, you've got to think they're going to score kind of a bucket load of goals. And Ziyech is there, loads of creativity. You've got Werner, who's probably going to be the main striker, likely to take penalties, I think. Depending on what happens with Jorginho, who looks like he could be off, but there's uncertainties around there. But the focal point, you want the focal point of that Chelsea team, which is going to be Werner, which sucks for Abraham, and Giroud. But that's what you get when you get someone who scored 28 goals and got 8 assists in the Bundesliga last year. It's an amazing record. It's a fantastic signing for Chelsea, which is only going to be boosted more by if they get this Havertz guy in too. So I think he's a lock in for me. Nice game against us in the first game, which I'm dreading. But yeah, that's really nice. I mean, it's interesting because there's a good balance of the premium picks. There's players who you'd probably be considering anyway. So you've got like Martial, Vardy, Golden Boot winner, that kind of thing. But then you've got other premium players who have got decent fixtures as well. So someone like Ings, you might be thinking, well, 8.5, that's too much for Ings. He's not going to get as many goals as he got last year. But he's got Palace in the first game, then he's got Spurs, and then he's got a decent run coming off the back of that. You've got Jimenez as well, price moves up to 8.5. But after game week 2, they've got an amazing run of games, and everyone knows how kind of consistent he is. So there's plenty of options, and it's interesting because I'm seeing a kind of a template forming. I think most teams are going with something like they're going 5 in midfield, and then they've got Werner and Mitrovic up front. Which, I mean, I'm guilty. I've got that at the moment currently too. But if you looked at people with players like Kane, Martial coming in game week 2, Even Vardy with West Brom away. There's loads of ways you can differentiate your team and be a bit different.
Yeah,
It's really we talked about it, on the midfielder video. There's so many options this year.
I
It's
know.
great.
I mean, I echo your thoughts about Werner. He's a player I want to get in. He's a great price as well, 9.5. He could potentially be 11. Could perform like an 11 million, 10.5 striker. If he's a bit of a flop, easy to move down. You've got two great choices within a couple of games. You've got Jimenez, Wolves, really great run. They get City out of the way. They've got a great run coming up. Southampton have great early fixtures anyway. Easy peasy. Move down to one of those two if you want. Or if you haven't got Martial, you can move to him as well. Really easily as well. These are downward moves as well. It doesn't matter about price rises. And you can also, you're only a million away from Aguero. You're only a million away from Kane. It's a great point to have. I've seen a few teams, people have shown me on social media, what do you think of this? And it's got like Mitrovic, maybe Ings, and then maybe a 4.5 or maybe a Che Adams or something like that. And I just go, think about who you might want to get. And if at some point you might want Aguero, you might want Werner. It plays to have that price to be quite near them. So I like the price points there. So
And I think there's a really good point there, because when you in the past I've gone against the old because when we 10 years ago, we've been playing for 10 years, however long it is, it was 3-4-3. There was anyone that wasn't 3-4-3 was an idiot.
Yeah.
They were casual, they were rubbish. But now you see more and more people going 5 in midfield, 4 at the back, this kind of thing. The biggest issue with not having 3 strikers, I find, is that when you've suddenly got options up front, it's so hard to move to those players. So if you've got Werner and Mitrovic up front, and then suddenly, and they're doing okay, but then Martial starts banging the goals, or Vardy goes on one of his hot streaks or something like that, suddenly you've got to decimate your entire team, or probably even wildcard, to get that player in early. Whereas if you do start with a more top-heavy team, it's actually a lot easier to be flexible. And the main reason is because the budget midfielders, you've got options.
Yeah.
There's no options budget strikers up to about 6 million.
I don't like any of them.
No.
You'll laugh when you'll see when we have our scout cast before game week 1. You'll laugh with my formation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to start with 4-5-1.
4-5. Whoa! I did that last year.
Yeah.
I had Wickham, and I had I think an Aston Villa striker.
But I'm doing it slightly differently, as you would expect from me. I'm doing it in a dullard way. My 2 premium forwards I'm going to go for from the very start of Werner and Martial, and I will go into game week 2 with Souček keeping Martial's. And it all. What I like about these with these wild cards, or when you're changing, when you're starting a game week 1, there's usually a player that unlocks something. It may be Frazier at Bournemouth. It might be someone like that. And for me, it's Souček. He's got he's a good heading the ball, great aerial threat. He plays a really bad team at defending headers in Newcastle, and then he has a poor run. So he's just, for that 0.5 more, I can use that 5th midfielder to play game week 1. He's got a great fixture. He's a player I'd want to play anyway then. And then he goes back to the bench. First sub. And who comes in? Martial. And then overall, I'll be looking at 4-4-2, 3-5-2, looking at that.
Yeah.
And that's my plan, which I haven't seen too many people do, but I'm sure there are people who are doing that. Because I want Manchester United. Their fixtures are great. We've seen what happens to them post-lockdown when their fixtures are great. They've got great players in Martial, Fernandes, Rashford and Greenwood, possibly with Sancho coming in. So I know that I want them. I hopefully they'll have the form to follow those fixtures. They are mega popular globally. I cannot emphasise how popular Manchester United are globally. Whether some people like them or not in this country, globally they are absolutely mega huge.
Yeah.
As soon as one of their players starts scoring well, their ownership will rocket. You saw what happened with Fernandes. I got him in with a differential game week whenever it was. Suddenly, everyone owned him. And that's because they're so popular. So I want to go in with the chance of having at least two Manchester United attackers
Yeah.
Martial ready to come in, Fernandez in, and I'll probably captain one of them, to be honest.
I mean, Fernandez is 27% owned,
Mm.
Martial's 20%, and they haven't even got a game
No.
in the first week.
Mm.
I think, yeah. I mean, I really like Martial, and in fact, if you're asking me, I know the question isn't which Manchester United player to get, but if you're asking me which player to get because you want
Mm.
to, I'd pick Martial. I
Yeah.
think nine's a good price for him. I know the reclassification is going to eat into his points a little bit, but he's the focal point of the
Yeah.
team, and he's the main striker. And my biggest concern with him last year was that he just didn't have that consistency.
No.
So I'd watch him one week and he'd look like he was just electric and tearing everyone apart. And I'd watch him the next week and he'd be dropping too deep and he'd be stuck out on the wing and not running back. As soon as they signed Fernandez, completely different. Like he's it's like he knows that he's just got this quality player
Yeah.
who can just pick out this pass anytime. When you've got Andreas Pereira there, I can see why you might think to yourself, I probably won't make that run. That's probably not going
Yeah.
to pick me out. When you've got Fernandez threading those balls, you just go for it. And
Yeah.
he is. And it's paying, and it's reaping returns.
I did toy with that sort of coverage pick with Greenwood, but then there's talk of obviously Sancho coming in for which would put his place at risk, or rather more likely rotation there. And I just think, who is the main man up top? It's Martial, who is in form, who has been in
Yeah.
form during lockdown, and yeah, I like the fixture. Yeah,
What I'm actually looking at doing is having Ings up front for that first game against
good idea.
Palace
Mm-hmm.
because they've got no players basically, let alone the contract situation, which means they're going to have even less players at the end of the season, and leaving 0.5 in the bank. Because then that's Southampton have the Spurs game at home, which I don't think is a particularly bad game for Southampton. I think they could score in that, but I'd be moving Ings with a game against Tottenham to Martial with a home game against Palace.
Now that's
I like that idea.
for my way of playing. I like to leave my transfers late, and as soon as one of them, as soon as Martial goes up 0.1, that deal's off, and so I guess you sort of. You're happy. Are you at ease with making that transfer early before price rise?
Well, you have to be. I mean, I do quite like I haven't done it before in any season, but I do quite like the idea of having 0.5 in the bank.
Yeah,
Anyway, just for that reason, is that you're not subjected as you would normally be to the price rise. If a player goes up 0.1 and then the same price, you physically can't get them. Whereas if you've got a bit of cash in the bank, then you can. I guess if I wanted to make that move, I'd need to make it earlier.
Yeah.
Because you would think that people are going to be making that move as well. So it's just part and parcel of the game, isn't it? It's one of the trade-offs.
It is definitely. For me, I'm a dullard conservative manager there with a small c, so I like to.
Well, one thing I'm doing is I'm going to make sure I have at least 2 bench players that are playing. So if I do make that move and I do have an injury or something like that, then at least I've got someone that can come in.
Yeah, so I mean, just looking through that list of forwards again, we can see Jesus there is the best for minutes per goal attempt in the box, closely followed by Aguero. They're in a league of their own, really. So when Man City's fixtures improve, if they haven't bought Messi, I'm going to be wanting one of Jesus and Aguero. Which one's going to start though? So we might get some hints. Yeah. If Aguero is
10.5 Aguero,
if he's fit and raring to go, he's going to be my preference. I'm just going to run the gauntlet of Pep rotation. But if one of them is injured, I'm going to get them in because they are in a league of their own when it comes to peppering shots in the box quickly. Looking at Kane and Vardy, Kane minutes per goal attempts in the box, one every 50 minutes. Vardy much better, one every 37 minutes or so. But at the moment I'm not interested, but I'm not going to rule them out. It's not one of those things that, hey Joe, you said you'd never get Vardy or Kane in. Of course I might. If they're going to do really well, I'm going to get them in. If they're going to bang in hat-tricks every week, I'm not going to turn my nose up at that. But that's where Werner would have to become one of them. Werner we've already mentioned. Firmino, not interested. It's Salah, Mane, Trent, Alexander-Arnold. That's it. That's who I'm interested in for Liverpool. And then Martial, I've talked to death really. He's the one I definitely want. He's the one I would want for game week 2. So I might as well just move early for that. And if Souček is injured pre-season, I may have to revisit that strategy because it all hinges on a really big bloke from the Czech Republic at the moment.
Wow.
So I'm not sure about that.
Your magic bean.
He's the magic bean. But we can see there's so much choice there. There's so much choice. So
Yeah, I really like Vardy. You know,
yeah,
I think Vardy is a player who I'm seeing in very, very few teams.
yeah,
And you know, with an away game at West Brom and then a home game against Burnley, you know, you've got a player with two really good games.
yeah.
I think a lot of it depends on whether they kind of get, you know, Chilwell's out, Madison's out. You know, they've got
Pereira could not
yeah,
be back.
yeah, they've got Evans. Just like their team is just a bit decimated. So and you saw at the end of last season they just completely capitulated when they had those injuries. So there's a bit of a risk with him, but you know, like you say, you know, you could start with Vardy and you could easily move him to Martial or Werner or something like that.
The strategy I'm deploying, that sort of, I could be wrong. Who do I move to? How do I run away from this situation? That applies for anyone starting with Kane or Vardy. My hat's off to you, because the world is your oyster then. Because then you can move to all sorts of forward options, and you can do a massive downgrade, and you can upgrade elsewhere. It's a really, really good thing to do. So ultimately, I wish I had an extra million, don't we all? Yeah, I probably would start with someone like Kane or Vardy, because the flexibility of moving them on, or if they, you know, do well, just keeping them is great. Just before we go, just want to give a reminder about the Fantasy Football Scout members area. So there's Opta powered stats tables, there's comparison tool, weekly player projections, and more. Please do check it out. Worth noting, there's a pre-season offer of £17.50 until the 31st of August, but from the 1st of September. So if you're watching this after 1st of September, please note that it will be £19.99, still a bargain. If you've enjoyed this episode, please press like and do subscribe so you can keep updated with news of all the latest videos and podcasts that we put out at Fantasy Football Scout. But for now, goodbye, and good luck with picking those forwards for the new season, Az.